Hey, Ange.
Hey, Les. How are you?
I'm doing well.
You look amazing.
Thank you. Are you noticing my little tan I got?
You look a little toasty.
As do you. You were laying out a little more than I was.
A little. Well, you have a beautiful pool. Thank God that it's ready for us.
Yeah.
And it's been great. Just hanging out with you at the pool and enjoying our time together.
Our hiatus, what are we calling it?
We're calling it Wellness Week. Wellness Week.
Yeah.
It's been going great.
It is.
So thank you.
So
thank you very much.
Welcome to another episode of Black Boomer Besties from Brooklyn.
Brooklyn!
So, you know what I really found interesting about our being a guest on Stephanie Clapper and Angela Pierce podcast, Someone's Thunder.
That was so much fun.
It was so much fun, and I know you all caught it, right?
Listen,
shameless plug.
When you get asked to be a guest on an amazing podcast, we feel like we have arrived.
That was big. I'm like, why would they want to talk to me?
But they did want to, and it was a wonderful interview with the two of us. I've been on their podcast before, but they've wanted the Besties, and somebody over here. Her schedule was such that we weren't able to.
I was saving lives.
So we finally got on their podcast, and it went so well.
So if you all haven't caught it, we will put the link in the episode notes so that no one can say that they haven't caught. What was interesting about one of the questions that they asked to all of their guests is who or what was most influential in your life?
Yeah.
Do you remember what I said?
I do, because it was like a big aha for you.
Turned out it really was a big aha moment, because for some reason I couldn't identify what was like a positive influence in my life. Right. But I brought up what I call the Mr.Reiner moment.
He was more than a moment.
Well,
he was a whole...
Yeah, he was a whole year. That's one thing. But Mr. Reiner was my 5th grade elementary school teacher. And while I can remember what he looked like, one of the most memorable things about Mr. Reiner was that he told my then best friend, he actually called up her mother and told her not to associate with me. Something of the effect that I was bad news.
Trouble.
And her mother should not allow her daughter, who is new to the school, to associate with me.
So why do you think that came up as an influence?
Well, one of the things is that the memory has lived for all these 15 years after the incident.
Leslie, you are hilarious. I'm like, wait a minute. 15
I saw your brain thinking, 5th grade, 10 years ago, 15 years ago.
Lord have mercy. Oh my gosh.
No.
Okay. How many years, Liz? How many years?
That was 51 years ago.
51 years ago. And
you know that between me, you, and others, Mr. Reiner's name comes up really often.
All the time.
Because we laugh at the fact that he thought I was a ne'er-do-well and that should stay away from me.
Yeah.
And the reason why it came up in the podcast, seriously and sadly for me, is that in addition to just being a running joke in my life, I realized that Mr. Reiner did have a really big effect on me.
Yeah.
And what he actually did to me, I believe, was plant a seed of success.
Because it was what, like,
Whereas
I'll show him kind of thing?
I really think that I felt like I had something to prove to the Mr. Reiners of the world.
Yeah.
At age 10, I didn't realize how much of a competitive person I am, but was at that time. But I've grown to know that I am very competitive. And it has informed my career choices for sure.
Yeah.
My educational experiences and so much of my life. And when Angela or Stephanie asked that question, he was the first thing that came up.
That was I was
You're
I was
like,
shocked.
what the what?
I was shocked because the question was asked, the expectation, I think, was, even for you, was that it would be a positive influence. But this has always been, Mr. Reiner in our friend circle has always been an indication of
Stereotyping.
But I think even more than that, it's been like, look how much something that was meant for bad turned for good.
And how wrong he was.
Yeah.
Because
yeah.
we speak about him in the context of, I wish Mr. Reiner could see me now when I get these awards. Or when I graduated from medical school.
Yeah.
Or when I got my master's degree. And I was a teacher myself. We would always say, oh, where's Mr. Reiner now? But the reason you and I have talked about it ever since speaking about that was that, what if I wasn't the person that I turned out to be?
Meaning,
what if I did not have a competitive spirit? Or what if I allowed Mr. Reiner being an influencer in my life and my teacher and someone that I should emulate and listen to? What if I started believing the negative things that he thought about me?
What do you think made you not do that? What do you think made you not do that?
Well, a few things. One, I think that God has had his hand on my life for as long as I've been alive. So I think that he has always meant good for me.
Right.
And wanted me and allowed me to live my fullest potential.
Okay.
And by doing so, he gave me the family that I have to push me to excellence.
Right.
He equipped me with the mental capacity to do that and a discerning spirit to pick friends who were good for me in my life and people that I should follow. He gave me a loving husband who has faith in me and etc. So, wow, but for that to come up when Mr. Reiner has been a running joke in our lives, to come up in a more serious moment was a little unexpected for me.
So I wonder, Les, whether have you ever has that ever come up in counseling or any therapy that you've had? Because it came out of nowhere. So I'm wondering, have you ever explored?
No, I've never thought about that. Like I said, the only time that I consciously thought or spoke about Mr. Reiner was in a joke. That's our friendship circle joke. Leslie's Mr. Reiner. But I think about the other Mr. Reiners in the world and how many people, the Mr. Reiners, and I'll put that in quotes, how they've influenced so many people over the years and their lives, decisions, choices.
And they may not have had those things that you mentioned.
The gifts that I've been fortunate to have to steer us in the other direction, or to turn his words into a joke rather than take it seriously.
Yeah, and have it be something that kind of was like reliving the negative. So when you God, I just lost my train of thought. I hate that. You know why? Because I was so like intensely
listening to what I was saying
to you. It'll come back. It always comes back.
But here's one thing that I was thinking, and when I was a high school teacher.
Yeah, that's it. If I could, because I'll forget again. Okay. So you have mentioned a few times that the main reason why you stopped being a teacher
what I was gonna say.
Was because you, it wasn't your passion, and you decided that the students under your leadership deserved someone who had a passion. They needed
someone who had more passion about it than I did.
And do you think that subconsciously it was, I'm not going to be a Mr. Reiner?
I don't know. It's funny.
I'll never be that.
I'll never be that. He was certainly someone I did not want to copy, I'll tell you that. Well, coming from a family of educators, I knew what a good educator looked like.
Right.
And the conversations that we had with my family over the dinner table about their educational endeavors, Right. I didn't feel that in my heart. But I also knew of the teachers that I was blessed and fortunate to have that were the opposite of Mr. Reiner, that were encouraging me and gave me the love of learning.
Right.
And I mean, I just think about on our week-long trip, how many times did I mention the Pythagorean theorem?
Yes, you did.
And so
we are such nerds. Such nerds.
We're talking to landscapers about putting up a fence, and part of my property is sloped.
Oh my
so
gosh.
I clearly saw that as the hypotenuse, because we were trying to determine the height of the hill.
Right.
And I said, we have to use, so we would determine.
What was the base? What was the hypotenuse?
The landscaper, this 25-year-old kid, was looking at us like these women have lost their mind. And we were all into it. We were like, this is how you do it. Which is the line? And here's the 90 degree.
Shout out to Brooklyn Tech.
Shout out to Brooklyn Tech. Tech Night.
Tech Night. Tech 80.
But I have memories of my teachers and instructors that I can visualize them in front of the class, making education magic for me.
Right, okay.
And then, too, I just remember how dark and miserable being in Mr. Reiner's class. And, my only fun was sitting behind me and us, laughing at my friendship with her.
She didn't listen to him, or her mother didn't listen to him. That was another great thing.
So I knew that I wasn't giving my students what I had.
Got it.
And plus, I had this other thing, medicine, pulling me outside of education. And that's why I left.
Right. Awesome. A couple things that come to mind. One is how many names of teachers who had positive influences on you can you remember? That's not to put you on the spot. That is to have us really think about how we're wired for the things that hurt, the things that causes pain, or when you get your grades, for example, it's like your parents will look at it and say, "Oh, you got a 95. How come you didn't get 100?" right? It's the part that it's kind of that the miss or the negative that gets the focus.
I know what
and
I
so
get
I'm
what you're
wondering
saying.
whether that, and it's not like you have to answer it necessarily, but I just kind of wanted to. That thought came to me.
Yeah.
That and maybe it is it's a recognition of something that we might want to change, that we do put focus on the things that there's a whole area of psychology which is fairly new. I don't think it's more than a few decades old, called positive psychology, and where psychology had been, how do you fix what's broken in a sense?
Pathology.
And then positive psychology is basically how do you accentuate what's working well versus but
it's like the Google reviews or things like that.
Yeah.
More people review negative experiences
Not
that
us.
they've had. No, we don't.
Not us.
No.
Listen, we give positive reviews. It's like, yes, we will take the time to give the review for service providers or whomever. Positive. So I'll tell you some of the things that I thought about since that revelation that you had.
Okay.
I thought about some of the people in my life who took a lot of effort to try to belittle me.
Ooh, yeah.
And fortunately, I couldn't think of a lot of people, but I did think of a few people. And
call them out.
Call them out.
Call them out. If you are listening, we're podcast co-hosts.
Well, unfortunately, one of them was my first husband. I won't call him by name, but
Oh, I will. I was
don't
not
do it
married
because
No,
you said that man. It's he's become that man. And let me just say, through him, I have the most amazing children that anyone could ask for.
I heard you say amazing 3 times.
Oh,
you said amazing.
Oh,
She has 3 children.
Yes, they are really some of the biggest teachers in my life. And so I just, wanted to put that out there.
Yeah. But you were talking about him.
Yeah, but he, the word that he labeled me with for a significant part of our marriage is loser. Loser. Can you believe that?
Yeah, I remember that.
And, you'd like to think that, but I didn't let that get to me. But of course, it gets to you when that is how you are, by the person that you're in partnership with, or desire to be in partnership with, that is what not only is thought of you, but that is what's said of you.
But where do you think that comes from or came from? Because he experienced you as a professional woman.
Master's degree.
Earning money.
A lot of money. I'm just saying.
Ivy League educated. But so where do you think
mother of his 3 children?
Right.
Yes.
Where would his perception of you think, come from? You know how they say sometimes like it's a mirror?
Sure. I was thinking of that and wondering about Mr. Reiner's life also, actually.
But what's funny about Mr. Reiner, I was always an A student.
Yeah.
So I wasn't the student that got the 95s. I got the 100s.
Yeah, but the thing is that it has nothing to do with who we are. It's
and
about
our
them.
Achievement. Yeah.
It's about them. And so to answer your question, I think where that came from was projecting accomplishments that he didn't have. And so it was a way of, well, if I don't have these things, I'm going to belittle the person who does. I think that is what was going on in that situation.
Instead of eliciting your help, well, he couldn't ask you for help because he had too much pride for that.
Right. But it was something that time and during that marriage is when my personal experience with Jesus Christ became really strong. And so there's nothing that I would change, because the result of all of that was a closeness to Christ that I'd never had before. And that helped me a lot in kind of processing and understanding who I was in Christ, and also who I was as a human being, and so on. And and that was that experience and being strengthened by that is something that I would never have changed, given up. When you find yourself going from being in a state of mind where somebody else is controlling your emotions, to feeling like you're living such a principled life, that your children aren't seeing you change your countenance when your husband comes home, right? In being in joy with them, and then when dad comes home, everything kind of gets sad and sullen, and just based on how he's feeling, or joyous and happy based on how he's feeling. And so it was really a transformational time in my life when I realized that trying to please was a very different thing than trying to bless someone. Pleasing someone and kind of getting into that enabling thing is what I changed. And it became more that blessing someone sometimes means saying, no, you're not gonna, it's not okay for you to treat me this way, right?
But how did you come to that?
Well, I came to that because I started to realize the magnitude of my value. You know, I started to realize that what he saw in me had zero to do with who I was.
And it's so funny that you say that, because while you're speaking, I'm thinking the same thing.
Yeah.
And I think this is why I never really held any ill will toward Mr. Reiner.
Mr. Reiner.
Instead, he just became a joke.
Oh.
No, really. And that's why I didn't personalize it. Remember the YouTube interview we were listening to with Barbara Walters and Dolly Parton
and Dolly
today?
Parton, my favorite, yes.
So remember how Barbara Walters was essentially insulting her and calling her a joke.
Over again, yes.
Aren't you a joke? And you're a hillbilly and what have you. And Dolly Parton never broke her countenance, and she never dropped down. She always stayed poised, because she says that it seemed like she felt like I never took this woman seriously.
Right.
She said in the interview, I know who I am.
I know who I am.
So she never took that on.
Exactly.
And I think that's why I never, succumbed or felt that way, or really was beaten down by that man, even as a 10-year-old.
Right.
So when you say that about the state of your marriage, I get it.
Yeah. And I think for, it's certainly, in this case, I was much older than 10. But when you are in intimate partnership, and when your expectations of marriage look a certain way,
Yeah.
and when you're not sure if it's you know what I mean?
You mean
And
that's the problem?
yeah,
Yeah.
right. And then I know for me, I was always considering, what are my children taking away from this?
That's true.
It took me a while. It took me a while to, and by the grace of God, reach the point where I was like, what the what? This is not the way that it's supposed to be. This is not the way that I'm supposed to feel. This is not, this is all his stuff and not mine. But it did take a lot for me to get there. But the change was fundamental. It wasn't like a hemming and hawing. Once I knew,
And I saw
knew.
a change in you
Yeah. Did you?
also because when you told me that you were divorcing, the two of you were separating and
Right.
you were leaving the state and going
Right.
elsewhere,
Right.
it wasn't with that umbrella of melancholy,
Yeah, I was
it
clear.
was resolved, it was resolute.
Absolutely.
And you and the children were looking forward to
Yeah.
this new type of thing.
There's so much
it's
that
like
was unknown.
You don't want to look back.
Exactly. There was so much that was unknown, but I knew everything. I knew that I was going to be taken care of. I knew that that there was better and solid, and that I never questioned, despite all of the stuff.
So
that
I
was
have a
going
question for you. Do you think that the labels or the mislabeling that your ex-husband heaped on you,
Yeah.
do you think that was any motivation for your future success in corporate, in your business, in entrepreneurship, parenting,
Probably. I mean, I really changed. A lot of it was, I obviously I was an adult when we met, but it's like I achieved another level of self love and self acceptance and so on, which propelled me into what was next.
And deeper in your faith, as you've
Of
told
course,
me.
of course, that was at the core of all of it. At the core of all of it, yeah.
But Ange, what else that brings up, and I think this is the most important point about why we're speaking about this, is that it makes me more mindful of the things that I say to people.
Absolutely.
It makes me more mindful of how I speak to my patients.
Yeah.
If I want to encourage a patient,
Right.
or if I want to educate a patient, I have to be careful and think about what are some of the messages that would be most effective.
Right. Okay.
And have the most longevity with them. Because remember, the population of people that I'm speaking to are often ill. They're
Very
often
ill.
troubled. They are often certainly distracted.
Right.
And perhaps the last thing they want to hear is my advising them to stop smoking.
Or chastising them, or
Right. So I have to be mindful of my presentation.
Right.
Because we hear certain things in certain ways.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
Yeah. I was also thinking about how powerful words are. Remember that we used to say sticks and stones can break our bones, but words can never hurt us.
Yeah.
I was thinking about that and the idea that words can actually kill. And can I go off on a little tangent?
Oh,
May I?
it wouldn't be you if you didn't.
So seriously, right? When you think about someone like Emmett Till, right?
Mm-hmm.
That woman's words about her lie, about what he did and who he was, and, led to his murder is not even
Lynching,
his lynching, his
torturing.
the lack of humanity of any level that he was given was the result of this person's words about what he did to her. So words can kill. And she came to mind really because I won't even call her name, but she recently died. And you all probably know that she recanted. She recanted her lie. She recanted what she said, that he spoke to her inappropriately, which led to these men murdering him. And she died recently. And so she's kind of been in the back of my mind, not her, but the idea that words are so powerful and people just use them with so little regard. That's where my mind went as we were talking about Dr. Reiner after the podcast episode.
Don't call him Dr. Reiner.
I keep saying
You
Dr.
do.
Reiner. I don't know. Mr. Reiner. Fuck Mr. Reiner. I have to say that. We will mark this as
Adult content
adult
only
content
because
but
of your language.
He really deserves that.
Wow.
He really deserves that. So, have you considered forgiveness?
What do you mean?
Do you have unforgiveness in your heart for Mr. Reiner?
Wait, let me just tell you for a second. You sounded like the end of a church sermon, like when my pastor would be at the pulpit and it's the end, and he's about to do
the altar call.
But after his sermon, he says, "So, do you have forgiveness?"
Okay, so
that's what you sounded like. All right, I'm sorry.
Do you have forgiveness? No, but seriously, right? Because we all know that forgiveness is not for the person who caused the wrong. Forgiveness is for the person who is.
I'll tell you why I don't even think that's applicable in this case.
Okay.
And let me tell you why. Because I did not spend 50 years being angry or upset with Mr. Reiner.
Okay.
And I think maybe it's indicative of my lifelong nature of being jovial and lighthearted and glass half full kind of lady.
Sunshiny.
Whatever.
So
I never thought that I felt the weight of that on me.
Right. Right.
So I was never upset with him enough that I had anything to forgive.
Are you now?
I'm now. No.
Now that you thought about him.
Fuck Mr. Reiner.
You're forgiven and everything.
Yeah, you're forgiven, but still, I remember one time we were joking. We've been joking about this man for a long time, but
and I never met the guy.
But I just remember saying, like, I'm glad he's dead. Remember? I mean, the man was probably 50 or 60 years old, 50 or 60 years ago.
At the right.
You know what? As a 10-year-old, he probably was 30.
Right.
He could still be alive. All right, I tell you, here's what I'm going to do.
Bring it in. Well, go ahead. You want to say something?
I'm going to look him up.
Okay.
I'm gonna look him up. I'm gonna find out more about Mr. Reiner.
Okay.
Wouldn't that be
would
interesting?
be amazing.
Could you imagine?
You should maybe.
What if I found like his relatives, like his children, and
What?
this is like a Lewis Gates moment. Like let's go back and
let's.
I can't believe I just said that.
Let's do it. Let's do it.
I mean,
love
he's
it.
Part of the New York City public school system.
Right,
he
right.
was, and
Yeah.
he's.
Let's do it. Let's get to the bottom of it. It may explain why he had this.
I can't even
way
believe.
Of seeing
what
you.
if they found out like he was fired for impropriety or what have you? You know, like for.
I wasn't thinking that. Leslie.
No. I don't mean impropriety, but I'm like he just messed up with too many people's minds.
Okay.
And it's like
okay.
you're out of here. Get out.
You out of here.
Yeah.
Okay. I think we should. I think that's great. I think that's a great idea. I think that's a great
This
idea.
would be unbelievable.
So listen.
Stay tuned. Season 4.
No.
Listen.
No, not
season 4.
Not season 4. We
Return of Mr. Reiner. Okay, guys.
No, Mr. Reiner explained.
Mr. Reiner explained. We'll make it scholarly.
Okay, all
Wow.
right.
So, you know
yeah.
what? This has been another episode of Black Boomer Besties from Brooklyn.
Brooklyn. See you next time.